All right, so this is the first of the relationship reflections series where I reflect on aspects of my relationship history and past relationships as an unhealed man, and what lessons we can take, both you and me, from from those past experiences. If you don't know me, my name's Sharif. I am an unhealed man in recovery, an avoidant personality type in relationship. And I'm the founder of Led by Love, in which Beth and I, through our community and our program, help women find or create a happy, healthy, thriving, conscious partnership, even if they have a horrific relationship history or have been feeling stuck in their marriage for decades. So, without further ado, today, what I wanted to open this series with, I'll start with this. When I was 19 years old, I had just come back from spending 2 months in the Philippines, where I was training in the martial arts. I'd taken myself out there on this kind of pilgrimage type thing, all of that stuff. And I was chatting with a girl who I worked with. She's only 17. And as we were talking, she says, she says, "You are all about you, aren't you?" And it really struck me. Let me put this back a little bit. It really struck me as shit. Yeah, that's true. And she didn't mean necessarily like I'm always talking about myself. Here I am on a video talking about myself. But what she meant was I'm always like pursuing what fills me up, what lights me up, what my heart wants to do. And she was right. And I'd never really thought about that, had that self-reflection before. But yeah, she was absolutely right, and it continues to be true to today. So, what has this got to do with my relationship history? Well, as positive as I would say it is when somebody is really following what their heart wants, and that's their primary focus in life, because it's what's the difference between that and living your life on purpose and being purposeful, right? It's important. But the problem is in relationship, when you combine that with emotional immaturity and a lack of personal development and growth, particularly as a man, this can become a problem. So, in my, I guess, my second longest relationship, which is with my kid's mum, my longest being with Beth at this point. But yeah, in my relationship with her, there's a lot that I can say about all of these relationships, but I'm going to try and focus on one thing per relationship, per video. I could write a book about each one probably. This one was really underpinned. The main thing in this relationship throughout the 6.5 years we were together, I would say on my part, was this profound selfishness that I had. And it really was this me being all about me thing, in combination with the fact that I hadn't actually grown up, in the sense that I hadn't cut the umbilical cord from my mother yet. So a little backstory there. I met her about, I want to say, between 1 and 2 years after my mum had died. And when my mum died, I was 21 years old, and I was living at home with my mom at the time. And so I'd never left home. Like, I'd never had the experience of leaving home. Instead, what happened was my mom died, and then the house got lost, and you know, I got literally evicted from the house. So I'd never had this experience of leaving. So although my mom technically wasn't around, energetically, spiritually, I was still a boy that had never left. And as a result, the way that manifested in my relationship with her, with my kid's mom, was I was constantly pursuing my things, my stuff, all of that, but in a way that was very blind to her, very blind to the bigger picture of the relationship. So the biggest crime, I think, I feel, there were many things I did wrong in that relationship, but the worst one was this piece. It's not very exciting. It's just me being really selfish, but it is a big problem. And so I think over time, what happened was um, she became all about me, and I was already all about me. And towards the end, I really picked up on this. And actually, to be fair to me, I did attempt to make amends towards the end after she had expressed, like, I'm not happy and I'm looking at the door. At that point, I felt like I really wanted her to, actually, maybe it was a little bit before that, to be fair to me. Anyway, and I wanted her to like live, please. Like, or you need your own life, pursue things, do things. I even booked stuff for her to do and all of that kind of thing. But the damage was done. It had been years and years of me just being all about me. So in hindsight, what I could have done on the surface level different was just be more aware of this other person and have make it a point to check in regularly with where she's at. On a deeper level, um, it would be really getting into relationship with somebody who already has a full life of their own, has a sense of purpose in life and all of that kind of stuff, and then continuing to honor that. But the deeper piece for me uh, would be to, I want to say grow up, but it's deeper than that, right? It is on, I would say, not just an emotional and psychological level. I would say it's a spiritual thing, this outgrowing your parents, of of as I said before, what I call metaphorically cutting the umbilical cord. And the truth is that isn't a one shot deal. That is a thing that happens over time throughout a man's life. And I probably should have mentioned in the intro, I'm also a former men's coach, having coached many other men as well as myself as best as I can. So, what that looks like and what that means is coming to a point of adulthood where you, you, your parents are on like the same level as you, where you get to this point of maturity where you realize, oh, my parents are just adult humans just like me, doing the best they can just like me, and getting all sorts of things wrong just like me. And then over time, as your parents get older and weaker and closer to death, you become stronger and more sovereign in yourself. And then there's this reversal that happens where you become more like the parent, albeit in a conscious way. That's the ideal way for it to go. It doesn't always, but that's what we should aim for. So I hadn't done any of that. I felt like, well, I didn't have a great relationship with my mum. She's dead now. She's gone. So I'm a man and I'm just doing my thing in life. And well, that's that. That wasn't that. There is still much more to do, because your mother will always be alive in you, psychologically speaking, right? And so I needed to do a lot of that work first. And so there might be many of you who maybe you're in relationship or were in a relationship with a man who had mum stuff one way or another, like some stuff that needed processing, and he hasn't done it. Well, this is one of the ways that it can show up, is that you look to your wife, your partner, and on some level you make her your mum. So in my supreme selfishness and pursuing all my things, there was an energy of um, especially because she controlled all our finances and all of that stuff, our life admin. So I would literally come to her and be like, hey, can we buy this thing for me? It was like, it had the energy of, mummy, can you, could you buy me this for my birthday or whatever? In hindsight, that's exactly what it was like, energetically speaking. And yeah, not good. And so I needed to grow up first. On her part, what would have been helpful, and look, this is none of these videos I'm going to make are pointing fingers or accusation or blame or anything like this. This is all 2020 hindsight, right? And so this is all just what can we take from this as a learning experience. So when I say this isn't me looking back and going, oh, I wish she or whoever had done this or that. It's not that. It's just like, well, what can we learn from this going forward for ourselves? So what would have been helpful for me, for us, for her, of course, would be um, one, being connected to herself, regularly checking in with herself and feeling as early as possible when something is off, right? Like something doesn't feel right here. Well, what is it? I'm not happy in this relationship. Something doesn't feel aligned. And then it's a case of self-inquiry, right? And feeling into, well, what is that? What do I need? And then having spent some time with that, when there is some clarity that comes around what is needed, what the heart desires, is to in you know as artful a way as possible, because there is an art to communication, share that with me instead of, and this is what we see so often, uh, is unhappy, unhappy, quietly unhappy, quietly unhappy, quietly unhappy, maybe drops hints here and there to him. Hints don't work on men. Just so you know, you cannot be overly explicit with a man. Tell him the thing in the plainest language that you can and be as direct as possible. Don't drop hints. So this is what we see all the time. Well, I said this and I showed him, and he knows that, and then all the things other than I didn't tell him, and then one day he gets the conversation, I'm out, or I want to leave, and he's like, the fuck, you know. You cannot be overly explicit with a man. So that is extremely not just helpful, but not so rather than just reflect on my relationship going forward and looking at relationships out there, it's essential. It is essential that you feel what is your truth, what your boundaries are, what your desires are, where they're not being met, that you share them from your heart with vulnerability. And then you come together to resolve this because that is in service to the relationship. And this is a tall order for many people because none of us are taught this. What we see over and again is the pattern of suffering in silence or semi silence. And then one day it's just literally too much and it's kind of irreversible. Um, in the bigger picture of what we both could have done differently was both do our work, our healing to whatever degree we can first before getting into a relationship and having kids with people. um, as a general rule. Now, look, the work never ends, the healing never stops. There's always a deeper layer to heal. So there's no like healed and unhealed. It's not a thing. We're all unhealed in various degrees of process of healing, right? But generally speaking, when you get into a relationship, especially when you're very young, we're both 22, um, and you both have traumatic childhoods with, you know, various kinds of abuse at home and that stuff, and you haven't done the work on that, which I don't know how many 22-year-olds have, uh, you're probably setting yourself up for some massive projection and a recipe for disaster as those things show up in that relationship, wanting to be healed through that relationship. So that was the thing I wanted to focus on today. You're going to see a lot of crossover as I share these relationship reflections in terms of what can we take away. There's really some underpinning principles which we will come back to over and again, I suspect. But this selfishness that comes from a man who essentially hasn't left home, whether that's literally because has gone from living with his mother to straight to moving in with the woman who's to become his wife or whatever. We see that a lot. That's kind of a problem. And more than that is spiritually outgrowing the childhood identity, and therefore still having this mummy connection with his actual mother, whether she's alive or, in my case, even if not, because it's an internal relationship. So, yeah. All right. I hope that offered some helpful insight. Let me know down below in the comments what comes up for you in this conversation, some things that have, yeah, been sparked in your mind, maybe even any questions that you have where maybe I haven't been clear. And yeah, all right. Take care, everybody.